Hi everyone, welcome to Truth Behind the Crime. Today we're diving into a disturbing case that reveals the darker side of human nature. Jogging is a popular form of exercise for millions worldwide, offering a holistic boost to physical and mental well-being, stress reduction, and an opportunity to connect with nature. Despite its benefits, safety considerations, particularly for women, loom large, especially when navigating isolated or dimly lit paths. In 2020, a woman vanished while jogging in a rural area in Jackson County, Arkansas, bringing to the forefront the dangers that women face on a daily basis. Nestled in the heart of the picturesque Arkansas Delta, Jackson County is an agricultural haven in the eastern expanse of the state. Located within Jackson County is the small town of Grubbs. Because of its small size, it's home to only several hundred people, and in 2020, one of them was 25-year-old Sydney Sutherland. Sydney and her boyfriend Alex Nicholson lived along Highway 18 with their dogs. They had been together for around 4 years, and in Sydney, Alex had found the perfect life partner. Sydney was kind and compassionate, traits that served her well as a nurse at the Harris Medical Center in Newport. The couple had plans to marry in the future, but for now, they were just finding their footing in their respective careers. When she wasn't working, Sydney found solace in physical activity, and she particularly enjoyed jogging. Her usual route comprised a scenic loop weaving between County Roads 41, 42, 43, and Highway 18. Because of her career, however, Sydney always jogged at different times of the day. Because of the rural nature of the area, there were very few cars that passed her along the way, and Sydney always felt safe during her jog. On the 19th of August 2020, the weather proved favorable, with a maximum temperature of 28 degrees C and a minimum of 20 degrees C. Although Sydney had just returned home from a family vacation in Destin, Florida, and had spent the morning with her personal trainer at the gym, she wanted to get outside and go for a jog. Around 2:30 p.m. that day, Sydney dressed in black athletic shorts, a white tank top, and pink sneakers. She texted her boyfriend Alex, who was at work, and then grabbed her cell phone and Apple Watch before heading out the front door. Typically, Sydney's jog lasted around an hour. When Alex returned home from work at 5 o'clock p.m., he found that Sydney wasn't home, although her car was parked in the driveway. He called her cell phone, but it was switched off, something that was unusual for Sydney, especially while out for a jog. Alex then called up Sydney's mother, Maggie, wondering if she had stopped by her home. Alex's heart sank when he learned that Sydney wasn't with her mother, and she hadn't heard from her either. Maggie told Alex that she would get in the car and search for her daughter along the jogging route. Before setting out in her car, she called the rest of the family, who began searching for Sydney as well. Maggie drove up and down the rural road several times, but Sydney was nowhere to be found. At about 7 o'clock p.m., they reported Sydney missing. Born to Dion and Maggie in Jonesboro on the 18th of September 1995, Sydney's roots were firmly planted in the rural town. Her family cultivated not just love, but also a farm in Grubbs, a place that would shape Sydney's formative years alongside her two elder brothers, Tyler and Sam. Like many who grew up in a small town, Sydney enjoyed the close-knit community and was faithful to her friends and family. Her mother, Maggie, said that not only were they mother and daughter, but they were best friends as well. Sydney's older brother, Sam, said that she was always the baby of the family and the only girl on either side. Educated at Tuckerman High School, Sydney's vivacious and sweet nature made her a memorable presence. She was more than just a student. She immersed herself in extracurricular activities, leaving a mark in the Spanish Club, Beta Club, and Key Club. Then, in 2014, Sydney stepped into the next chapter of her life, graduating from high school with a poignant senior quote in the yearbook, which read, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." Her educational journey continued at ASU Newport, where she obtained her LPN license in July of 2018. Furthering her dedication to nursing, she graduated from the University of Arkansas Community College, becoming a registered nurse in December of 2019. Sydney's compassionate spirit found a home at Unity Health Harris Medical Center, where her warmth endeared her to both co-workers and patients alike. All of her colleagues said that she had an unwavering devotion to her patients and was at her best when caring for the elderly. After Sydney was reported missing, detectives immediately began their search for her. Their first point of action was to try and retrace her last known movements. They knew that she had gone out that afternoon for a jog, and it was evident that she hadn't returned home. All of her belongings, including her car, were still at home, indicating that Sydney had disappeared somewhere along her jogging route. As the investigation got underway, detectives heard from a delivery driver who had seen Sydney at about 2:30 p.m. She was jogging west near Arkansas 18 between Newport and Grubbs. But from there, Sydney's trail disappeared. Detectives searched on foot and by vehicle along Arkansas 18 before fanning out farther afield. They called in the assistance of sniffer dogs from the Arkansas Department of Corrections, as well as a helicopter from the Arkansas State Police. The small community came out in droves, with around 200 volunteers and 150 police officers, firefighters, and other officials. Jennifer Edson, one of Sydney's co-workers, said that she wasn't surprised by the outpouring of support. The search parties continued focusing along Highway 18 and other roads in the vicinity. As the group searched near Highway 67, not too far from Sydney's home, something in a field that ran alongside the road caught their attention. It was glistening underneath the sun, and as they drew closer, they saw that it was an iPhone. It wasn't just any iPhone. It was Sydney's iPhone. The field was around 1.3 miles away from Sydney's home. The discovery prompted numerous rumors that Sydney had been struck by a vehicle and the driver panicked and disposed of her body somewhere. However, detectives were quick to refute this rumor, saying that there was no evidence to indicate that this was what had happened to Sydney. Jackson County Sheriff David Lucas announced, "It makes it tough sometimes when the rumors start hitting. Our phones start ringing and it hinders us quite a bit." Detectives also put out an appeal, asking that anyone who had traveled on Highway 67 from 2:00 p.m. until 5:00 p.m. on the day that Sydney disappeared to get in contact if they saw anything suspicious. They soon got a phone call from somebody who reported seeing Sydney on her cell phone in that area. While they didn't see anything that was necessarily suspicious, they did observe that there was a pickup truck in the area at the same time. Sydney's family and friends were all active in the search, scouring through the area on foot and by car. As darkness descended on the area, the search called it a day, but they were back on the scene early the next morning. As they searched, a tip came in from a woman named Gracie Llewellyn. She appeared to be emotional as she told detectives that on the day Sydney disappeared, her husband returned home with a mysterious dent in his pickup truck. She was married to 28-year-old Quake Llewellyn, a local farmer, and they lived with Llewellyn's parents on their sprawling farm. After receiving the tip, detectives spoke with Quake Llewellyn's mother, Carrie, who provided them with a security video from their property. In the video, a clear dent could be seen on Llewellyn pickup truck, and both Gracie and Carrie maintained that it wasn't there when he left on the morning of August 19th. Detectives working on the case already knew Quake Llewellyn at this stage. He had called them just the day before and told them that he had seen Sydney walking along the road sometime before she disappeared. Other than the delivery driver, Quake Llewellyn was the last person to have ever seen Sydney. Alan had actually participated in the search for Sydney. Being from such a small town, everybody knew one another. While searching, Sydney's mother begged Llewellyn if he had seen anything suspicious after learning that he had seen her before she disappeared. He replied, "Nope, she was just running." Quake Llewellyn grew up in Newport, Arkansas, experiencing the challenges of his parents' divorce during his early years, around first or second grade. Following the divorce, custody was granted to his mother, Carrie, and although he maintained sporadic contact with his father over the years, his upbringing was marked by the absence of a constant fatherly presence. When Llewellyn turned 10, his mother remarried. The second marriage also ended in divorce just a couple of years later. However, a significant turning point occurred when Llewellyn was in the 9th grade. His mother found stability and companionship with a local farmer named Michael Llewellyn. Michael soon became the primary father figure in Llewellyn's life, and in time, he decided to officially adopt him. The Llewellyn family, now anchored by Michael, provided Quake with a nurturing environment filled with love and warmth, a stark contrast to the previous male figures in his mother's life. Michael had inherited a legacy of farming and hailed from generations of successful farmers. Alongside his father, Donald, they managed thriving farms in the region. Llewellyn Farms was a testament to their agricultural prowess, spanning 5,800 acres across 4 counties, including Jackson, Independence, Poinsett, and Craighead. Following his graduation from Tuckerman High School with a mix of C's and B's, Llewellyn transitioned into working alongside his father and grandfather on their farms. His responsibilities included hauling seeds and contributing to the day-to-day operations. At the age of 23, Llewellyn made the decision to move out of the family home. 2 years later, he tied the knot with Gracie, a local woman with 3 children of her own. The newly formed family settled into a rented home with aspirations of becoming homeowners. Driven by a strong work ethic, Llewellyn dedicated extensive hours to the farm, diligently saving money for their dream of home ownership. In 2016, their commitment and contributions to agriculture were recognized when the family was honored as Jackson County's Farm Family of the Year. Michael expressed the family's farming legacy, remarking to Arkansas Online, "We are a true family farm, from my dad, Donald, to me, and my son, Quake." Then in 2020, Llewellyn Gracie and her 3 children moved in with his parents in order to save money so they could one day build their own home. Despite the cramped living conditions, the atmosphere in the home was always good. Gracie and Carrie looked after the children while Llewellyn and his father worked at the farm. Detectives were keen to learn more about Quake Llewellyn after they spoke with Gracie and Carrie. He was brought in to be interviewed by officers from the Arkansas State Police. He said that he knew of Sydney's disappearance and that he knew her, but only barely. Llewellyn and Sydney had actually attended the same school in Tuckerman, which only had around 50 students per grade. As detectives delved into the investigation, they scrutinized Llewellyn's online presence. It was revealed that he and Sydney had been Facebook friends, but he had recently removed her from his friends list, a timing that raised suspicion among detectives. Adding to the intrigue, Llewellyn was a member of the Facebook group established to aid in the search for Sydney. Granting detectives permission, Llewellyn allowed them to search his GMC Sierra truck, which had a large dent. During the search, detectives made a concerning discovery. There was blood in the crevices of the tailgate. With the evidence against Llewellyn mounting, detectives obtained a search warrant for his cell phone. It was discovered that he had an app called the 360, which tracked his location. It showed that he had been 2.26 miles northwest of where Sydney's cell phone was discovered around the same time she disappeared. Furthermore, the data suggested that he had lingered in that vicinity for an extended period. With this crucial information in hand, detectives converged on the specified area, surrounded by fields and farmland. They initiated a meticulous search, and in an isolated field, they came across a disturbed patch of land. Armed with shovels, they carefully excavated the soil, eventually uncovering the lifeless body of Sydney. She bore the evidence of a violent encounter, with bruises and wounds, and her shorts had been forcibly removed. Detectives swiftly cordoned off the area with crime scene tape, summoning forensic experts to meticulously examine the scene. Once the crime scene had been thoroughly processed and documented, Sydney's body was carefully transported to the Arkansas State Crime Lab in Little Rock. The following day, DNA testing proved that the body was indeed Sydney. She had been sexually assaulted, and her cause of death was listed as multiple blunt force injuries. Quake Llewellyn was immediately arrested on suspicion of capital murder, kidnapping, and rape in the murder of Sydney. Detectives had suspected that Llewellyn would deny any involvement in Sydney's murder, but once he was brought into the interrogation room, he made a full confession. According to his account, on the day of Sydney's murder, he was en route to inspect wells and rice fields. While driving westbound on County Road 41, he spotted Sydney jogging alone. After passing her, he executed a U-turn and accelerated towards her, hitting her with his pickup truck. According to Llewellyn, he then bundled Sydney into the back of his truck and drove around 3 miles to an isolated field in Newport. There, He removed her shorts and raped her on the tailgate of his truck. He then used a shovel that was in his pickup to dig a hole and placed Sydney's body in the ground. While detectives had a confession, they still needed more corroborating evidence. At the family's farm, Carrie allowed them to come inside and search Llewellyn's bedroom. They came across a pair of tan shoes that matched the pair Llewellyn was wearing on the security footage at home on the day of Sydney's murder. These were removed from the home and then compared to the shoe imprints that led to Sydney's grave. The tread on the shoes came back as a match, further implicating Llewellyn in the murder. After Llewellyn's confession and arrest, he was ordered to be held without bond. During the brief court hearing, Sydney's family was visibly upset, while Llewellyn remained emotionless. As the case made its way through the justice system, safety for women while jogging gained widespread attention. The case drew national coverage, with programs such as Good Morning America addressing the matter and encouraging women to exercise additional caution when venturing out alone. During this period, the persistence of COVID-19 restrictions and the closure of numerous gyms worldwide prompted a surge in the number of individuals taking up jogging as a means to stay active. Unfortunately, this new enthusiasm for jogging was met by a concerning rise in attacks on women who were jogging solo. Sydney's tragic murder sent shockwaves across the globe, intensifying the apprehension felt by women who had embraced jogging during the pandemic. Just the month before, 43-year-old Sarmistha Sen had been killed in Texas while out on a jog. Safety expert Jared Arthur offered invaluable advice to women looking to safeguard themselves while jogging. Her primary recommendations included avoiding the use of headphones to remain alert to their surroundings and refraining from wearing baggy clothing or ponytails, which could be easily grabbed by potential assailants. Additionally, Arthur suggested diversifying jogging routes to prevent the establishment of predictable patterns, making it more difficult for someone to target them by observing a routine. In the face of these challenges, the broader conversation around women's safety expanded, prompting individuals and communities to address the need for increased vigilance and protective measures for those engaging in outdoor activities. On the 4th of September, Llewellyn's wife, Gracie, filed for divorce. In the filing, she said that her husband had committed acts of shame and general indignities. Then, on the 19th of October, Llewellyn was formally charged with kidnapping, rape, capital murder, and abuse of a corpse. He subsequently pleaded not guilty to the charges and filed paperwork seeking a jury trial. Following his plea, Sydney's mother, Maggie, said in the media that he deserved to die for what he had done. She commented, "He is a monster, an evil monster. She did not deserve any of that." She added that the entire family and community were still in shock, living in a nightmare. Maggie shared that she often found herself gravitating to the area where her daughter was last seen alive and where her body was found. The following month, Llewellyn's defense attorney, Bill James, announced that he was seeking a mental health evaluation for his client. He said that he had reason to believe Llewellyn had a mental disease or defect, which could mean he might not have the capacity to understand the case against him. James also raised concerns about Llewellyn's ability to assist in his own defense and requested the evaluation include testing for any mental disabilities. Jackson County Circuit Judge Harold Irwin subsequently ordered a psychiatric evaluation for Quake Llewellyn. When Llewellyn sat down to speak with psychologist Dr. Lacey White, he claimed that Sydney's murder was accidental. He stated that when he turned around after spotting Sydney, a cloud of dust meant he couldn't actually see her when he hit her. He claimed he believed she was dead at that point, and although he hadn't been drinking or using drugs, he was afraid he would get into trouble. Instead of calling for help, Llewellyn said he bundled Sydney into the tailgate of his truck with the intention of hiding her. Llewellyn also admitted that after killing Sydney, he tried messing with her corpse, but didn't go into detail, as advised by his defense attorney. He said that after spending 2 to 3 hours checking wells, he returned home, had dinner, and then went to bed, trying to forget what had happened. The next morning, he went to work as normal. Llewellyn claimed that the murder and the events surrounding it were just a blur, commenting, "I knew I didn't kill her on purpose." When asked why he didn't call 911, he said he was too afraid. He further explained that he had called detectives to claim he saw Sydney walking along the road before she disappeared, hoping he wouldn't get caught. Dr. White determined that Llewellyn was mentally fit to stand trial and understood the judicial process. She noted that he expressed a desire to take his case to trial so that he could get his story out there to whoever needs to hear it. While Llewellyn maintained he had accidentally struck Sydney with his pickup truck, detectives argued he did it on purpose with the intent to rape and kill her. Llewellyn also shied away from admitting he had raped Sydney, saying only that he had tried to mess with her. Dr. White found no evidence of mental disease or defect that would have caused Llewellyn to not know what he was doing. In her report, she wrote, "Rather, he maintained his own form at that time and engaged in a number of rational, goal-directed behaviors before and after the offense, such as completing farm tasks the day of and the day following the offense, and having dinner with his family." Moreover, she reported that Llewellyn was not feeling different or experiencing any stressors during the time frame of the offense. She believed that Llewellyn was able to appreciate that his actions were wrong, as evidenced by his efforts to hide Sydney's body in his truck, bury her, and keep what he had done to himself. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the case was moving slowly through the justice system, with almost all trials being delayed, creating a backlog. Prosecutor Ryan Cooper announced in May that he was going to push for the death penalty for Llewellyn if convicted. Defense attorney James responded by filing 48 different motions against the death penalty, arguing that the incident was a horrible accident and not intentional. He also requested a change of venue, asserting that Llewellyn couldn't receive a fair trial in Jackson County due to the prejudiced opinions of its citizens. The judge ultimately agreed with the defense and moved the upcoming murder trial to Lawrence County. On the 1st of October, Quake Llewellyn was escorted into court, where it was announced that he had reached a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to charges of capital murder and rape to avoid a potential death sentence. The plea agreement had been made with the consent of Sydney's family. Although they had wanted him to be sentenced to death, they were present to witness Llewellyn's sentencing. Maggie presented a poignant victim impact statement. Through tears, she said, "Today, we crossed the finish line in our fight for justice for Sydney. She should be here." Alan was then formally sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.